How's it going, guys? Inspired here, bringing you the version 1.1 of my Inspired patch for WWF SmackDown 2. Right off the bat, yes, 1.1 is out now and you can find the link in the description. In this video though, I wanted to showcase and talk about everything that is new in this version of the patch. But before we begin, a quick announcement. I have started a Patreon account for this project, so if you really like the work I'm doing and you want to make sure new versions of the patch come out more often, now you can. People who support the mod on Patreon will get early access to public releases, as well as access to builds with experimental features, which may or may not later become the official part of the patch. You will also be able to participate in polls that will determine the future of the mod, and you'll get to request customized versions of the patch with roster changes made specifically for you. So say you want the Hardy Boys in their SmackDown 1 attires, or maybe you want Andre the Giant as part of the playable roster. Now you can request a version of the patch that is customized specifically for you, and you can create your ideal SmackDown roster from all the characters that are currently available in the game. If you're interested in any of that, or if you just want to support the development of the patch, go to patreon.com/inspiredwrestling and check out what I got there. And don't forget that even if you don't have the means to pledge on Patreon, but would still like to support the project, you can subscribe to the channel, hit that like button on this video, and share it with your friends and other people on social media. That will also help me immensely. So, Inspired Patch 1.1. What's new? I would say that there are two major changes in this version and several minor ones. So let's start with the major changes. First, there are two new playable roster members, whom you might have already seen in my previous video. They're Droz and Raven. Raven has custom textures which were made by me using his textures from SmackDown Just Bring It as a base. On the other hand, Droz's model and textures are actually fully made by Yuke's, the developers of the SmackDown games, but his head has never been officially released. His torso is of course already in SmackDown 2, and his legs are in SmackDown 1, but to get his head I had to port it from the prototype of SmackDown 1. Now unfortunately we cannot add new wrestlers to the game, we can only replace the existing ones, so I had to replace someone to get Droz and Raven in. I chose to replace Bob Backlund and Buchanan, and I'm personally fine with that, as I never much used them anyway, and I'd much rather have Droz and Raven as playable characters. But for those of you who still want to play as Backlund or Buchanan, don't worry, their body parts are still in the Create a Superstar mode, including, by the way, Bob Backlund's head, which I made selectable. More on that a little later in the video. Now, the second major change in this version is crowd signs. If you played any of the previous versions of the patch, you know that lots of wrestlers didn't have crowd signs during matches. Well, it's changed now. In 1.1, each and every playable wrestler in the game does have crowd signs. For wrestlers who are alternate attires of the vanilla characters like The Undertaker or Chris Jericho, I took their crowd signs that were already in the game, and for new wrestlers like Vader or Raven, I made new crowd sign textures myself. I tried to make new crowd signs in the same style as the existing ones, so hopefully they will fit in seamlessly. Now let's get to several smaller changes in 1.1. While we're on the topic of crowd signs, I'd like to mention that I also fixed Mid's crowd signs glitch. And the great thing about that is it also allowed me to port other heads from SmackDown 1 without causing the same glitch on other characters. So several of the wrestlers in the mod got new heads from SmackDown 1. They're Big Show, Test, Triple H, China, and Chris Jericho. And as you can see, Jericho's head is actually from the prototype of SmackDown 1. It has his debut hair, which is absolutely ridiculous, but also kinda cool for that heel Jericho vibe. I also ported the heads of Blue Mini and Midian. Even though they are not playable roster members, you can now create them in the Create a Superstar mode. I also fixed a couple of glitches for the SmackDown 1 heads that were already in SmackDown 2, those of Venis and the Godfather. Venis had a UV map problem in the model, and the Godfather's head had a problem with color table in the textures. Both of these glitches are fixed now. And as I mentioned, since I removed Bob Backlund from the playable roster, I also made his head selectable in the Create a Superstar mode. I also made Andre the Giant's head selectable as well, so you can now create Andre and Backlund using their full models. If you want to find out how to access all the new body parts in the Create a Superstar mode, check out my Google Doc with patch info. The link is in the description. By the way, another new addition to the Create a Superstar mode are several new crowd signs, selectable for your created wrestlers. Andre's and Backlund's crowd signs were already in the files, and I just made them selectable. And I also added crowd signs for Median and Blue Mini. Next, we have several hacks that I've been working on for a while now. First of all, I fixed some of the problems with the Manager and Rankings hack that I introduced in version 1.0, so if you had any problems with those, they should be fixed now. I also tried to improve my previous hack that allowed you to choose any match rules regardless of the match type. Basically, I found out that the KO and give up options don't work if you don't also have the victory by pinfall enabled in the match, which means you couldn't enable KO and give up in cage matches and other similar matches where pinfalls are disabled. What I did to solve that problem is I replaced the charge speed option in Rules 2 in exhibition matches with a new option that lets you enable or disable pinfalls in the match. It has 3 states. Off disables pinfalls, KO and give up completely, Ring enables them in the ring only, and Anywhere enables them, you'll never guess, anywhere. So remember, if you want to have KO and give up options enabled in a match, you'll also need to have the pinfalls enabled as well. I personally love to use that in cage matches, but you can use it in any match you want. If you're worried about not being able to set the charge speed anymore, then don't, because it's gone only in the exhibition mode. You can still find and adjust it globally in the options menu. True, you won't be able to set it before each match, but I think the pinfall option is more exciting to have in the exhibition. I also replaced the useless entrances option in Rules 1 with the weapons option, which now lets you enable weapons in any match type, not only in hardcore matches. However, please keep in mind that it's not safe to enable weapons in Anywhere Fall matches. If you do so and choose to start the match in any area other than the ringside, the game might crash, because not all weapons in the game are allowed in all backstage areas. This is really unfortunate, and I wasn't sure whether I should include this option at all, considering it leads to crashes, but I decided to do it after all because I think that having the ability to enable weapons is just too good to pass on. Try playing a Royal Rumble match with weapons and you'll know what I mean. Just again, remember not to enable weapons in Anywhere Fall matches and you should be good. By the way, speaking of Anywhere Fall matches, I also made it so the Hardcore Championship can now be defended in Anywhere Fall. It never made any sense to me that it wasn't allowed, considering the whole 24/7 rule and all those wild backstage brawls in WWF at that time, but now, in 1.1, we can finally put the Hardcore Championship on the line in Anywhere Fall matches. I also hacked the Royal Rumble match and made it so every new wrestler who enters the match now already has a finisher. I always wanted to do that because, as we all know, when wrestlers enter Royal Rumble in real life, they are always fired up, they eliminate other people, they perform finishers left and right, and just look strong in general. So hopefully giving a finisher to new Rumble entrants will add a bit of excitement to the match. By the way, a small side effect of this hack is that every new wrestler in the Slobber Knocker match now also enters with one finisher. But I think that's actually kinda cool as well, because it sort of makes the Slobber Knocker match a little more challenging and exciting as well. Now to the biggest hack of them all in this version of the patch. So, as you know, if you played any of the previous versions of the patch, Big Show and Ken Shamrock are fully playable in my mod, they are in the rankings, they can challenge for titles, and they can even appear in cutscenes. The problem is, however, that the season mode just refused to book them in any matches for any meaningful length of time. Previously you could play as them for a year and only get like a couple of matches against unknowns, which absolutely sucked. Fortunately, I've been able to figure out how to completely restore Show and Shamrock for the season mode, and in 1.1 they are actually booked as often as all the other playable wrestlers in the game. So when you download 1.1, be sure to go to the season mode and have a playthrough with Show or Shamrock. That just feels so amazing to finally have them appear in matches regularly, so definitely give it a try. And speaking of the season mode, I also started playing around with cutscene modding in this version of the patch. I haven't made any major changes yet though, only slight tweaks during the Backlash and Judgment Day pay-per-views. Basically, my initial goal was to change the cutscene that happens at Backlash, where Vince, Shane, Stephanie and Triple H are in the ring and they're talking about Stone Cold. Obviously in my patch I replaced Shane with Regal and Stephanie with British Bulldog, so as a result we get Triple H hugging Bulldog in that cutscene, which is obviously very sweet and wholesome, but it also doesn't make much sense from a storyline perspective. So naturally I changed that cutscene to a different one that's much more realistic and more logical in this situation. Nah guys, just kidding. Of course that's not the cutscene. The actual cutscene that happens there now has a slightly different animation and different participants. Go to the season mode, play until the Backlash pay-per-view and find out for yourself. Again though, don't expect any major changes yet, as I've only just begun sinking my teeth into cutscene modding and I haven't even decided what changes I want to make to the season mode, but that's definitely something that I'll be working on in the future. Well, that's pretty much it as far as notable changes in 1.1. What else do we have? I also tweaked some wrestlers' body morphing, heights and movesets, but that's nothing too major. Oh, and I also modified some wrestlers' stats and I tried to give all the wrestlers in the game realistic overalls. You might not know this, but SmackDown 2 does have the stat and overall system for wrestlers, much like the later games in the series. It's just hidden from players, but it does exist internally. So yeah, I adjusted the stats to make them hopefully more appropriate, and I also made the wrestlers' overalls public, and you can now see them in my Inspired Patch spreadsheet. The link is in the description. Yeah, that's it for Inspired Patch 1.1. Honestly guys, I'm really excited to finally release it, so let me know what you think of all the new features in the comments. And I'm also excited for the future, as I still have a lot of plans for the patch, and as a matter of fact, I've already begun working on 1.2. Obviously, no idea when it's coming out, other than hopefully eventually, but I'm thinking I might also do some progress reports along the way, so if you're interested in that, keep an eye on the channel. Thanks for watching guys, see you around.
The Rock says know your damn role.